Are you at that stage of healing where you are voraciously consuming information, trying to understand everything about your trauma, your symptoms, and why you did or didn't do certain things? Are you thinking and rethinking and overthinking everything from what to have for breakfast to how to escape a hypothetical bear attack in the shower? Then I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that you're not crazy. It's actually a sign that your thinking brain is coming back online. But the bad news is that you cannot outthink your trauma. In fact, you might be making it worse. I'm Marcy, and I run a platform called Survivor School. We use applied neuroscience to help women break through the invisible barriers of complex post-traumatic stress and trauma so they can finally reach their full potential. And today, I'm going to teach you why you can't outthink your trauma, but more importantly, what actually works instead. And by the end of this, you're going to understand how trauma affects your brain's functions and what you can do to stop overthinking and start healing. But first, I'm going to introduce you to this little lady right here. We call her REXA, and she's going to become very important in just a few minutes. But before we get into that, we need to talk about the brain, more specifically, your thinking brain. It's the part of you that talks to you, makes plans, and tries to figure everything out. And this is the part we want to feel like is in control. We want to feel like we're making decisions and we're leading the way. However, it's important to understand that even though we think that thinking is what makes us feel safe, it could actually be holding you back from healing. I promise I'm going to explain why and how you can actually take back control. But I do have some good news about all of this thinking you've been doing. Thinking, overthinking, and strategizing is actually a sign that you're moving out of survival mode. When you experience trauma, your survival brain, which is supposed to keep you safe, literally hijacks all of the resources your thinking brain needs to process things logically. And when you're in survival mode, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, is actually starved of resources. And this is why thinking clearly, trying to plan, and focus in this phase is exhausting. So when your thinking brain starts to come back online and get caught up on everything it missed, it's actually a good sign that your survival brain is calming down a little bit. However, it's important to know that you aren't out of the woods just yet. Okay, it's time to bring back REXA to help us understand this a little bit better. Imagine your brain has three parts. Your thinking brain, that's the one that talks to you and has thoughts and makes plans. It's like the adult in the front seat driving the car. And then there's your emotional brain. This is like a toddler in the back seat who's just reacting to how they feel, hungry, tired, or sad because you told them no to ice cream. And then there's your survival brain. Now, this is like your pet dog sitting in the back seat, occasionally barking if it sees something like a really scary squirrel outside. Now, this is all well and good when things are normal, but when you've experienced trauma, your little pet dog turns into a T-Rex, REXA. And the more trauma you've experienced, the bigger and more anxious REXA gets. Now, imagine you're driving down the road and something scary happens, real or imagined, and your cute little guard dino jumps into the driver's seat to try and save you. Now, the problem is, in the process, she knocks you and your emotional toddler out of the car and drives off without you. And now you're left on the side of the road feeling completely lost while your emotional toddler is upset and you don't even know what's happening anymore. This is why when we are in survival mode, we often feel like we are left out and are always missing a piece of the puzzle and are always trying to play catch up. When you start strategizing everything, this is actually a sign that REXA is on her way back with your car. Okay, so if this is good news, why is it so bad to try and think your way through? Well, because there are actually 5 phases your brain goes through to heal trauma. But to keep this simple, I'm going to talk about the first 3. Now, you probably have a pretty good understanding of 2 of them, survival and security. But there is a phase in between these 2, scarcity. When you are coming out of survival mode, REXA the T-Rex is actually on her way back with your brain and body, but she's still on the lookout for danger. And she's taking notes of all the things that work to keep you safe. So she can just repeat the same process next time something bad happens. Because if it worked the first time, why change it? Your brain is constantly looking for proof that certain things keep you safe, and it's kind of superstitious. So hypothetically, let's say when you were in high school, you had a big test coming up that you didn't feel prepared for, and you stayed up all night studying. But in the morning, you accidentally wore mismatched socks, and then you aced the test. Now, you might think that it was that lucky combo of socks that was actually your good luck charm, and then you decide to wear the same sock duo every time you take a test after that. So when your thinking brain comes back online and goes into hyperdrive, your T-Rex is cataloging all of that information, and it's literally training your brain to believe that overthinking is the reason you came out safely, even though it was probably a whole series of unconscious actions that kept you safe and alive. But Now you've trained your survival brain to use this technique because it mistakenly believes that it will keep you safe. So every time Rexa senses even a hint of danger, she engages in thinking overdrive, which makes her more nervous, and she jumps right back into the driver's seat, creating a vicious cycle that actually keeps you stuck between scarcity and survival mode, and it prevents you from moving towards security. So what can you do to stop this cycle and rebalance your brain's resources? Well, the secret lies in your brain's operating system, and most of us have been taught to resist it because it's uncomfortable, which is why healing can feel like we take 2 steps forward and then fall back into old patterns, and it feels like we've undone any progress we've made. I'm going to give you a little exercise that actually aligns with your brain's operating system, so you can break the cycle without the fallback. When your brain is stuck in overthinking overdrive, you need a quick, effective way to complete the survival cycle and shift out of survival mode and get into security without taking any detours. And that's where stop, drop, and roll comes in. This is a really quick exercise you can do in about 90 seconds. And step 1 is stop what you're doing and interrupt the pattern. Whatever you're doing, switch it up. If you're sitting, stand up. If you're holding something warm, put it down and grab something cold. The goal is to do the opposite of whatever your body is doing and change your state. This creates a sensory pattern shift that pulls your brain out of its loop. Step 2 is to drop your shoulders. When we're stressed, our body naturally tenses up to defend itself, and it relaxes when it's safe. And so we can accelerate this process. Shrug your shoulders upward toward your ears and tense your muscles. Hold them there for a moment, and then slowly drop them back down while exhaling. Now, it's a good idea to make sure you have good posture and that you're opening your chest as you do this. This signals to your nervous system that it's safe to relax, shifting you out of fight or flight mode. Now, step 3 is to roll your eyes up as if you're looking at your own eyebrows. Then, with your eyes closed, slowly shift them from side to side as if you're watching birds fly overhead. The eye roll actually helps turn down the overactive amygdala response, and the side-to-side movement activates bilateral brain activity, which can be helpful in processing thoughts and emotions, and it can break the overthinking loop. The stop, drop, and roll method is so effective because it interrupts the overthinking cycle with sensory disruption. It releases physical tension stored in the body, and it activates both sides of the brain, helping to complete the survival loop. Now, the difference between people who easily bounce back after a crisis and those who get stuck in the survival scarcity loop comes down to whether they are working with or against their brain's operating system. I did a whole training on this where I outlined the 3 biggest mistakes people are making that are actually preventing them from healing, and I break down the 3 rules of your brain's operating system and why understanding them is the key to finally breaking free from CPTSD. Now, if you want access to that for free, I will leave a link to that in the description.